Acts of the Apostles 18. After these things, Paul departed from Athens, and came to Corinth. And he found a certain Jew named Aquila, a man of Pontus by birth, who had recently come from Italy, with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had commanded all the Jews to depart from Rome, and he came unto them. And because he was of the same trade, he stayed with them and worked, for by their trade they were tent-makers. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath, and persuaded both Jews and Greeks. But when Silas and Timothy came down from Macedonia, Paul was compelled by the word, testifying to the Jews that Jesus was the Christ. And when they opposed themselves and blasphemed, he shook out his garments, and said unto them, Your blood be upon your own heads. I am clean. From now on I will go unto the Gentiles. And he departed thence, and went into the house of a certain man named Titus Justus, one who worshipped God, whose house was next door to the synagogue. And Crispus, the ruler of the synagogue, believed in the Lord with all his house. And many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed, and were baptized. Then the Lord spoke to Paul in the night by a vision, Do not be afraid, but speak, and do not hold your peace. For I am with you, and no man shall attack you to harm you, for I have many people in this city. And he stayed there 1 year and 6 months, teaching the word of God among them. But when Gallio was proconsul of Achaia, the Jews rose up with one accord against Paul, and brought him before the judgment seat, saying, This man persuades men to worship God contrary to the law. But when Paul was about to open his mouth, Gallio said unto the Jews, If indeed it were a matter of wrong or of wicked villainy, O ye Jews, it would be reasonable for me to bear with you. But if it is about words and names and your own law, look to it yourselves. I will not be a judge of these matters. And he drove them from the judgment seat. Then all the Greeks took Sosthenes, the ruler of the synagogue, and beat him before the judgment seat. And Gallio took no notice of these things. And Paul, after staying many days, took leave of the brethren, and sailed for Syria, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila, having shaved his head in Cenchreae, for he had taken a vow. And they came to Ephesus, and he left them there. But he himself entered into the synagogue, and reasoned with the Jews. When they asked him to stay a longer time, he did not consent, but took his leave of them, saying, I will return again unto you, if God wills. And he set sail from Ephesus. And when he had landed at Caesarea, he went up and greeted the church, and then went down to Antioch. After spending some time there, he departed and went through the region of Galatia and Phrygia, strengthening all the disciples. Now a certain Jew named Apollos, an Alexandrian by birth, an eloquent man, came to Ephesus, and he was mighty in the Scriptures. This man had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in spirit, he spoke and taught accurately the things concerning Jesus, knowing only the baptism of John. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue. But when Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took him aside and explained to him the way of God more accurately. And when he decided to go to Achaia, the brethren encouraged him, and wrote to the disciples there to receive him. When he arrived, he greatly helped those who had believed through grace, for he powerfully refuted the Jews in public, showing by the Scriptures that Jesus was the Christ.